Well, I think there's a bit of not fitting in that I carry with me everywhere I go, and I think you can probably hear it in some of the ways that I talk about myself, right? Some of the judgments I make about myself openly in conversation. But I really think representation is powerful, and so while I don't see anybody that looks like me necessarily in our league, I love the idea that maybe someone can see themselves in me as they join our league. My name's Jess, and my derby name is Moo. Oh, and I use they, them pronouns. I don't have a derby number, but I'm gunning for 8008. You got it. You know. I'm a queer, black, trans, autistic person. I'm a queer, black, trans, autistic freak, and life is good. I've been playing derby since January, I guess 6 months. Oh, I'm a landscaper. I like cows. I just like cows. But also, Moo is very versatile. Sailor Moo, Moo Poppins, move, bitch. I really like the idea that if someone yells my name, that they yell, Moo! That feels good to me. 2019 it would have been, I went to Pride. One of the leagues in Ottawa had a float, and afterwards they had a table. And I stopped by and talked to the people that were super friendly, super approachable, talked about crash course that might have been coming up soon, and I was interested in getting involved at the time. I had just gotten out of a relationship with the kid's dad, and so I have 2 kids, and so I sort of had more time and freedom to do some of the things that I had wanted to do but had put on the back burner for a while. And so I was interested in joining, and then with COVID, I wasn't able to right away. And so even though I still wear a mask inside all the time, I felt like it was the right time to sort of get out and do some more stuff. And so I reached out. I'd been following them on Instagram for a while. Because of my skating experience, I wasn't sure if it would be a good fit. So I reached out to say like, hey, I think I can skate, but I don't know the game, and I would love to know more. And so I was invited to do a skate test just to sort of see where my skills were at. And so I guess a couple of other people were ready to do a skate test at the same time. And on the day that I came for the test, it was super intimidating. I walked into a place I'd never been and opened the door to a bunch of people I'd never met that were all geared up and looking really cool. And, and so I had skating experience on ice skates and rollerblades, but not quad skates. And so I threw on my quad skates. I'd skated the night before in my bedroom and did some lemons. And so I threw on my quad skates and did my best. And I was welcomed into level 1. And I learned how much I had to learn. It was great. So my experience is skating on the canal mostly, and I love to skate long distances. And so when we finally, on that first day, when we were invited to join the whole league for 27.5s, I was finally able to just skate, right? And in the way that I was used to, where it was just like, okay, go for it, skate long time distance. I think at that point I was ready to commit to playing, and I knew it would be a challenge, and I don't really have a sort of time frame in mind, but I am on a quest to be awesome, and derby seemed like a really good ingredient. Everybody who I've met that plays derby is awesome. Maybe I could be one of them. I was so excited to be in level 1, and I showed up still feeling super intimidated, and I was really, really grateful to see that there were other skaters who were still learning and that everybody didn't just know everything right from the get-go. It was really reassuring for me. I really loved getting that direction from my coaches. They were really specific about what they were looking for. It was really easy to ask questions. And the people who had been there prior were really friendly too. I felt really out of place because I'd never been in these environments, and people just talked to me. Yeah, it was very like welcoming. It made me feel like being in the prairies again. I was born in Brandon, and after high school I spent some time in Edmonton, and one of the things that really stands out to me that is different out west compared to in Ottawa is I describe Ottawa as very cliquey. I think my experience socially in Ottawa has been that like people lump together, and it's really hard to enter friend groups or work groups, or that it can be really hard to like cross that barrier from stranger to friend. And I don't live with the word stranger in my vernacular. And stranger than what? Like, we're all strange. And so being in a group in Ottawa that felt kind of welcoming and warm like Edmonton was really nice. It felt like coming home. But Hot Monster is also a really great buddy. We're in level 1 together, and we're both parents, and she had Pokemon stickers on her helmet. Wow. I have other people like you. Honestly, when I came to my first when I got to my first derby game, you were one of the first people that came over and said hi and introduced yourself. And it was just like, oh, thank you. I'm not alone anymore. Moving from level 1 to level 2 was a huge change. The requirements, or not requirements, but like the skills we practice are a different kind of skill. And so first off, I really love a graduated approach to learning. I think it's really accessible, and I think it's really supportive. People can move from one level to another, or stay in the level even if they graduate, depending on what their availability is, what their comfort level is, and I think that's really fabulous. I am so happy to be involved in things where all people are supported, and that we all have ways to exist in those spaces is really important. But level 2 has been a lot more challenging for me because of like not wanting to get in people's way. And that is something that I am learning to do, to be in people's way and for it to be okay, and to knock people out of my way and for it to be okay. I think moving to level 2 helped me show up to my off-skates life in a really different way. I am no longer going to move out of your way if you're behind me and just trying to get by me. I take up space now, and it's great. Yeah, that's been really powerful. I don't feel bad, I really love contact sports. I love it when Baywatch challenges me. I really like to feel powerless because I will push back against it. And so anytime I encounter someone who is more skilled than me, I just am so excited to work with them. Derby kind of feels like being in a mosh pit, and where we all consent to being there together. I miss team sports from I used to play soccer when I was a kid, and I tried playing as an adult. I didn't have what I was looking for. The last few years I've been kind of on a quest for intimate connections in whatever ways that shows up, and so building friendships with people that I can work beside has been where I found most of those. Yeah, a community of awesome people seems like a great thing to connect to. Yeah, I have 2 kids. They're 7 and 10, and so I think it would have been even more challenging for me to start playing when they were younger, when I first committed to pursuing derby. The kids are really supportive. I call them my best cheerleaders. They are my biggest fans for sure, and are always asking me what did you learn at derby? So I really, really appreciate that. They're super interested in the sport. They will hip check me while we're walking down the street kind of thing. And so It's really awesome to see how excited they are for me, but also they don't love coming to practices all the time because it's long, and you know, they would probably rather be skating. Just kind of coming off of like a month where I didn't have sort of consistent childcare, and so I missed a few practices. Excited to be on my skates again. I got to go to practice last night, and that was very good for me. I also really appreciate because the season has started, we've gone to a few games and there's always a little spot for kids to hang out. And so that's super, to have that in sport is great.
So my name is Erin, aka Booty Vicious. My pronouns are she, her. I have been with ORD for about 2.5 years, I think. I mostly play jammer. I made the Black Hearts, so then my first official team game was in June. Everyone was there. My parents were there, my sister-in-law, my brother, my kids, my partner.
So when you went down in the Ottawa game, are you okay talking about what happened?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, no, so I went down. I honestly don't even know what happened. So except that I felt an impact in my sternum. And I guess my solar plexus. So I was just completely winded, but I was so shocked that I didn't move, and everyone thought that I was knocked out, which I feel so bad about, but it was really just, I was in shock, and it was more about taking stock of what was going on in my body to figure out, am I really hurt? Did something crack? Did something, or is it just the wind out of me? And yeah, exactly. And so right away, the paramedic came, and I wasn't moving, and so no one else knew this, but I was talking to the medic the entire time. She's like, so what's going on? I was like, so I was in here, and okay, just take your time, and yeah. So it was good. Baywatch came in and sat behind me and propped me up and all that, and yeah, it was maybe a little dramatic. It felt maybe like I acted a little dramatically in retrospect, but
I'm so glad you were okay. Oh my god, it's weird. You see people get hurt all the time in derby games, but then it's like, fuck, that's Erin.
Yeah.
And her kids are right there.
I know.
I was just oh.
And apparently, my mom was just walking back in with my daughter as I was lying there. She missed the impact, but then she just saw me, and she was, they were kind of beside themselves. But everything,
you were not dramatic. Getting a hard hit to the chest is.
Yeah. We luckily, we train a lot for it. I know coach wanted to know, were you holding your breath? Were you, and I'm like, no, I think it was okay. I think it was just the impact was a bit of a shock. I think I was doing all the right things, which is why I wasn't more hurt.
But I think my kids also see how happy I am when I'm skating and how happy I am after I'm skating. We all like getting slushies together, Landscaping is a bit of a step towards what I want to do professionally, which is welding. I started welding in 2019 and fell in love with it, and then started finding jobs in the welding industry and fell out of love with the industry. I have always been a conservationist, so working in industry to build things and fabricate structures that I don't love existing was really challenging for me. But then also just culturally, those workplaces were not ones that I felt comfortable in. I was black sheep, if you will. And I just, I didn't find places where I could work the way I wanted to work. I really want to hone my craft. I really like doing excellent work, and I was just being asked to pump things out. And so I'm hoping to sort of use welding and any other kind of metalwork in the future. I would really love to make garden sculptures and things like that. I want to have a garage where I can just create things that light me on fire. Oh yeah, this is a lot of things I like to do. There's no shortage. My first job was as a fire breather's apprentice, and so working with heat and working, there is no shortage of things I do. I was an apprentice, so I never breathed fire. I ate fire a little bit, and I would be lit on fire regularly in my job.
Okay.
I never took a selfie while it was happening. So I kind of have a leave no trace attitude towards the world. Maybe it connects to my difficulty being perceived or my fear of getting in people's way, but I try to live in a way that causes as little harm as I can. And so veganism for me is a really powerful way to do that. I try not to buy things. This is a brand new shirt to me. I got it 5 years ago at Value Village kind of thing. But, you know, like I really don't consider myself much of a consumer. I also hate capitalism. So this is one way to live that. A few years ago, I wrote a list of things that would make my life better. And so I have built a life over the last little while really intentionally that fits my needs, fits my capacities, and lets me be healthy despite some of the forces that are acting against me. I live in a housing co-op, which is, I think co-ops can save the world. I love the co-op business model, and I love how people can be themselves in co-ops because I have no landlord. There's nobody lording over me that if I do something they don't like, they kick me out. I rent, but I am not powerless in my housing, which is perfect for me. The business that I work for was started by one of my best friends, and we just recently voted to incorporate as a co-op too. So I live in a housing co-op, I work in a workers co-op, I have social extracurriculars. Derby is one of them. I also, you know, hang out at summer camp and volunteer and stuff, and I help my neighbors when I can, and life is good. I had to build a life that was good. Get some sniffs in the mic. Because there were so many things that it felt like were bringing me down. I had to build a life that had balance in it, and so I had to make everything else really, really good. A lot of spaces sort of call for you to be like the people around you. And I think it's a sweet nod to the Derby community for being diverse as far as like character types and body types. And, you know, like it really, I think I've been encouraged to not be afraid so many times and to just show up. Even when I, you know, like there have been times when I've been so unsure and someone reaches out and says, just show up, it's okay. And so that, I think, sort of creates environments where masking is not necessary. I also find it really hard to mask when I'm exhausted, right? And so the demands, the physical demands of Derby and the cognitive demands, be here, be there, stick with your friends, you know, it just kind of makes all of that shake off. I think it does the same thing to troubles, if you will. You know, you can all day before practice I'll be thinking about something that really just doesn't feel right, and I'll show up and, oh wait, I'm playing Derby, it's nothing else in the world, it can't be. I've definitely showed up for practices though, and you know, said to people as we're putting on our skates, I'm not in my body right now, I'm so sorry. If I'm in front of you and you need me to move, like, you'll have to tell me move, because I don't know what's going on. I wonder sometimes if it comes from like being trans and just not relating to my physical body or feeling like I'm not in my body. I think that there's a fair bit of surviving that I've had to do where I just, you know, if I let someone else take the driver's seat, I can make it through kind of thing. And so I sometimes exist as a cluster of thoughts rather than a person in a body. And so reminders that I have a physical body are not always welcome. And so, you know, I think that relates to transness, and that having people see me as something that I'm not, kind of makes it just seem dissonant when I'm reminded that I, you know, exist here in the flesh. And so, yeah, I have definitely struggled in the past to like be on video anytime we're doing like a circle. Introduce yourself and say your favorite animal. I just freeze sometimes. I sometimes would rather be a bug on the wall. I think as my body changes to sort of meet the needs of Derby, I am really excited to see those changes and to see how the work that I put in is showing. Some examples I have are of my fabulous ass, but also like having bruises from Derby. It's like, I find it really grounding. It's like, oh yeah, I was there, I did that, and now I'm here, and it hurts when I touch it. But it sort of gives me that continuity. I think I did know that I was trans for a really long time, but I feel like I'm still sort of accepting what that means. When I was a kid, my hair was cut really short and people would use he, him pronouns for me all the time, and I loved it. And then I grew boobs. And one of the other breadcrumbs was that I knew when I was 12 that I didn't want them. And I remember writing on black paper with gel pens in my journal, I'm gonna cut these things off as an 18th birthday gift to myself. And I didn't realize until, I think, I was probably around 30 when I realized that like all those little crumbs added up to a big picture. I had that moment when I was like, yeah, why is everybody I know trans? Why are all my friends autistic? Like, what a weird coincidence. I must be so generous, no.
My name is Lee, and my Derby name is Fairly Bionic. My pronouns are they, them, and fey, fair. I've been playing minus pandemic about 11 years. There is a saying that the roller derby to trans pipeline is very real. And as a trans skater in roller derby, that's not exactly something I can argue with. Some of the first representation that I had of people who were non-binary and trans-mass were within roller derby. And so for the first time, I was actually able to see myself and have the vocabulary around my identity, which didn't exist before. And I haven't really seen in too many spaces as welcomed as it has been in roller derby.
These are the people I relate to. These are the people that see me the way I want to be seen.
My name is Em. My pronouns are they, them. My official derby name, I guess, was Lady Macbeth, but I also unofficially went by Daddy Bonglegs. And I skated with ORD. I started in early 2019 and I left in 2023. I do think so. When I started, actually, I don't know if you know this, but when I joined the league, I hadn't come out yet. So at the time I was like, I'm still a girl. So I remember when I did come out kind of to the rest of my friends and family, which I think was in 2021. And then we were just starting to get back to in-person practices for ORD. So I was like, okay, well now I have to come out to everyone in the league as well. I wasn't nervous about it. I've never really been too nervous about that aspect of coming out, right? You get it or you don't. You accept me or you don't. It's more just I'm giving you information to be able to refer to me correctly. I think there's some sort of struggle and hiccups along the way because there are a lot of people who are associated with derby who've been with the sport for a really long time, who do think of it as a women's sport. There's a lot of ladies and girl power and that kind of rhetoric, and it can be really hard for people to change their language, but it's not malicious in any way. It's just kind of habit. Sort of a mixed bag, but in general, it was in a much more positive and receptive environment than most other kind of sport and athletic spaces, which feels really good, right? It's nice to come to a place where, yeah, maybe not everyone is always going to get your pronouns right 100% of the time, but there isn't any tolerance for homophobia or transphobia. It does feel good to know that even if people are going to make mistakes, there are good intentions.
And so, yeah, I actually do most prefer to use he, him pronouns, but it's not something that I exude. And I know that people, I absolutely love and respect people who use whatever pronouns they're most comfortable with. in spite of the shape of their bodies sometimes. But I have had so much pushback that that's not something I'm really like at yet. I've considered it for sure. I feel like the times I can most relate to the identity of a woman are the times where women are empowered and strong and connected. And so at Derby are some of the times that I'm most comfortable with the feminine aspects of myself.
I think for myself as a trans masked skater, though I do identify as non-binary, I always want to be very cognizant that this sport has been started by and for women, and I don't ever want to take up that space from women. There are more men's spaces and leagues that have started and exist within the Derbyverse, and that space allows folks of any gender to be in it. But having the opportunity for myself to play on both WIFTA and MRDA teams has been really great for someone who they don't really fit in one category or the other. And within the Men's Roller Derby Association world, my fellow league mates and teammates have been super supportive of me throughout the journey, and same with the WIFTA world. They've also been super supportive. As a non-binary trans person in this sport, I have had the opportunity to flourish and grow and be my best self, in large part because of the people that have been in this community.
In high school, my nickname was Distractor, and it seems to have followed me because I just can't shut up. I don't know what it is. I get so excited when I nail new skills. I am hooting and hollering and whatever else. I can't even tell it's happening.
Do it again. Woo!
It's so exciting. What? I'm a dopamine chaser, and so I spend so much time doing nothing but also looking for dopamine that, like, when I'm actually doing something physical, my body is just like, okay, I'm on board. Novelty is my drug of choice. I really like things that I've never done before, and so not only is quad skating in a pack full of chaos and just the right kind of, like, who knows what's going to happen next. Every skill, transitions, double transitions, doing like single transition to then doing like two back-to-back, whee, all over again. Like push assists. Oh my gosh, you're flying. I think where my social anxiety inability to do basic things makes me struggle the most is on our morning practices. I've missed maybe 8 Sunday practices because they start at 9 a.m. and my brain doesn't usually start at 9 a.m. But what has happened for every single one of those is that I wake up on time, I get ready, and then I can't come. I think it's a great opportunity because of who's around. I have a feeling that if I identified the need that I had around that I could share it with somebody and that we could find a way to meet my need. But I haven't found the right morning person yet to show up and come drink coffee on my porch while I get my socks on so that we can leave the house together. And my goal is to play at least some kind of game before the end of the summer. And my kids have told me they will help me get to practice so that I can do it. I've started watching Derby a lot. I find it to be a really exciting sport to watch. I love seeing the ways that people approach the sport, different people's strengths. I have a tendency to hyper-focus on things when they interest me. And so now that I skate in this context and I'm learning how to do little bits. Yeah, I still have a lot to learn, but like I really like watching people who are professionals, people who have been playing the sport for a long time. I think it's helping my learning. Haven't played yet, so I can only hope. But no, I don't. I'm never good at like names or faces. I can't remember actors. I can't remember, like, I don't have that part of my brain. I don't recognize movie stars. And so I don't really know specific players, but watching a game I find absolutely thrilling, and we'll do it for hours.
Heard of Black Diaspora?
No, maybe?
So Black Diaspora is basically a derby league
Okay.
of black skaters.
Oh, cool.
All around the state.
All right.
In Canada as well.
All right.
They're on Instagram.
Nice.
So yeah, you can definitely watch their games.
It's like a decentralized league?
Yeah.
Nice. One of the reasons I like welding is that it's all about inputs and outputs, right? So the smallest change that you make to your settings creates a totally different output and a totally different product. And so finding those inputs and honing them is a fantastic challenge for me. I think, I don't know, I love to sort of see a group of derby players move as a flock and see where you can kind of find holes. But because I haven't played, this is all very idealistic. Always been bigger than I thought I was. I haven't grown in height since I was 12. And so I like towered over my teachers in grade 6. And I remember playing tag with a kid once. I think we were in grade 5. And he jumped off the play structure to get away from me and broke his ankle. And so I was blamed for breaking his ankle, and they thought I pushed him off the structure. Like, I've always been seen as angry. Kind of, you know, angry black woman kind of thing. I've always been seen as big and angry and oppressive, or, you know, like that I'm trouble for other people. And so being comfortable being big and angry and loud and taking up space is something that feels really empowering, because suddenly I am what they have always said I might be, but I'm choosing to be it, and I'm doing it in a context that is totally safe. I've always just sort of, accepted that label that was thrown at me, but now I can sort of embody it in a different way. And I like that.
My name is Gloria. My pronouns are she and they. My derby name, Gloria Guns.
I really like derby because there's a lot of really interesting people. There's a lot of like diversity in terms of gender identity and sexual orientation that I find quite refreshing. I really like being around a diversity of folks. But at the same time, roller derby is very white.
Derby tends to be predominantly white middle class women.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed.
Roller derby where, you know, people are very open-minded about all sorts of identities. But I still feel like an outsider in many ways because I'm not sure that people necessarily understand what it means to, for example, not be able to communicate with my grandparents because we don't speak the same language, or other aspects that come from being a child that grew up in an immigrant family, right? And, you know, not everyone has to have had the same experience as me, because I will say, having grown up as a kid from an immigrant family and often in very white spaces, I have gotten very used to being sort of like feeling different, like feeling like an alien. I've actually gotten very comfortable with feeling different from everyone else.
Well, I think there's a bit of not fitting in that I carry with me everywhere I go. I think it's unignorable that I'm black in derby. And when I'm skating, my blackness isn't what I'm thinking about the whole time. I mean, I can say that at this point, I haven't really felt anything that sort of leads me to believe that I'm being perceived differently because of the color of my skin or because of the shape of my body. I think derby, from what I've seen, is a really inclusive space. Things like racism are so deeply internalized that I don't think any of us really escape them, despite some people arguing that we live in a colorless society. I think, I think we all carry with us the legacy of colonialism. These are things that we can't erase, but I feel like I feel like in spaces, like Derby is one of the places where I feel like I can show up with fewer masks on, right? I can show up more as myself than a lot of other places. And sometimes, the things that happen along the way mean that I can only show up as myself. All of the masks that I meant to bring get stripped off along the way. But like, I think because of that, if there was ever an injustice that I perceived, I like to think that I would be more able to show up and meet it, because it's a space in which we're encouraged to be ourselves, and where differences are not something to pretend don't exist.
So I guess what's nice about roller derby, even though I would love there being more racial diversity, is that at least you have all sorts of people that are very weird or different in very different ways. So at least while I come in feeling like an alien, feeling a little bit different because I come from a different cultural background, at least people are a little bit open-minded about that. But yeah, I would love to see a lot more diversity, especially in Ottawa, in our roller derby leagues. I know we try a lot of things, and it's going to take a lot of work, but I think we can get there for sure.
I really hope I can play derby for the rest of my life, kind of thing. Like I love it when things combine, and combining skating and contact and group movement, plus all the social stuff, friendship, skating events outside of derby, like it all comes together in a really beautiful way. I really think representation is powerful, and so while I don't see anybody that looks like me necessarily in our league, I love the idea that maybe someone can see themselves in me as they join our league.
About your communication style, and I've never experienced being anything other than war.
That's good. I must like you. The way we experience life and the way we experience ourselves, I think, can be really different from the way others experience us. And I'm glad that's okay. I don't kill mosquitoes in my tent. I shepherd them out, and I like life. I try not to end it. I'm quietly tick checking your dog because it's one of the things that I do and have always done. Your dog doesn't have any ticks.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.